Hello everyone, peace be with you. Welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome to you. It's good to have you. We're going to continue our discussion of the Italian presence in Eritrea, and we're going to see what the natives had to say about it. In my understanding of this, of these final parts, or this final part of the article, of the journal, rather. So we spoke yesterday about how there was an apartheid situation going on in Eritrea. It was an apartheid situation, and just to quickly, slavery was the system that was applied to the natives, and while the Italians, they had another system. They were governed by civic codes. Even though Mussolini was speaking against slavery, it was still found in Eritrea. What was known as Eritrea, and what should not be known as Eritrea, and what should not be known as Eritrea now. In any case, let's get to our program. I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. We mentioned how 1.1% of the Eritrean population spoke Italian. These people, these snakes, did not even teach they didn't even teach them their language. I mean, it's terrible. By 1931, and they were already there 41 years, they had 10 years left. They didn't know that, the Italians or the Eritreans, but they had 10 years left because in 1941, the British drove them out. So by 1931, they didn't speak Italian. So in any case, intense alienation and marginalization led Eritreans to firmly keep their Ethiopian identity. I don't know which Eritreans are being referred to here, but I'm not saying that what is mentioned here is not true. I'm not saying that at all. But it may refer to a particular group of Eritreans. My guess is the Tigrinya, maybe even others. I'm not sure. But because the story, there's a story, the lowlanders, the story is, there's a story when it comes to Eritrea. I'm trying to actually do a program where I dive into Eritrean history, but more of not involving not involving so much its politics, but more about it's the region, and from what I see in the text, in the book, in the region and the people who live there. It was written in 1945. I'm trying to get some to get permission to use that text because it just has very, very beneficial information. In any case, so intense alienation and marginalization led Eritreans to firmly keep their Ethiopian identity despite harboring deep grudges against Menelik, whom they called a traitor, for giving them away to the Italians. I'm going to go to the source because after the word traitor, which is between quotation marks, there is a footnote number, and then for giving them away to the Italians, there's also a footnote number as well. Let's check them out. So for the footnote that says that where the that talks about how the Eritreans called Menelik a traitor, the source for that is, for giving them away, is Irma Tadia, Ethiopian source material and colonial rule in 19th century. The letter to Menelik, 1899, by Blata Gara Egziabihir, Journal of African History. And also Tekuste Nagash, no medicine for the bite of a white snake. Tekuste Nagash also includes this in an article or a book. I believe it's a book since it's italicized. No medicine for the bite of a white snake. Notes on nationalism and resistance in Eritrea, 1890 to 1940. And also GFH Berkeley, the campaign of Adwa and the rise of Menelik. There are three sources mentioned for the Eritreans considering Menelik to be a traitor, which he was. Even if they did not say that he was a traitor, he was a traitor. For giving them away to the Italians. The source for that is Johannes Kolmodin, Traditions de Tzazaga Hazaga. It's in French. So I don't know if it's Tzazaga or Hazaga. I know of these two groups. I believe they're Tigrinya. But it's a French source. In any case, that was the source for them calling Menelik a traitor and for giving them away to the Italians. Yet the peasant masses remained acquiescent. There were only local and individual attempts to get out of their state of unhappiness. Local and individual attempts to get out of their state of unhappiness. For instance, the Aklagzai chief and collaborator Bahta Haggos rebelled in 1894 against his erstwhile masters, whom he referred to as white snakes, by telling them that Ethiopia was greater than Italy. Bahta Haggos is someone I respect. Why? Because of this action of his, rebelling against the Italians, being firm against the Italians. Bahta Haggos I view as a hero for that region. You know that when Bahta Haggos, when he passed away, I don't know if he was killed or not, but when he passed away, the Italians did not want people going to his funeral. There was something that they did to disrupt his funeral. Bahta Haggos was against them. In the beginning, I believe he was with them. In the beginning. But then he, and that's why it says here, against his erstwhile masters. I could be wrong. Maybe he just means that masters of, in that the Italian became the master in the region, or maybe because he used to be with them. Because Bahta Haggos, according to at least one source, was in the beginning was welcoming of them and then turned against them. He referred to them as white snakes by telling them that Ethiopia was greater than Italy. What is the source for that? If anyone's going to say, oh, he never said that, let's see the source. Let's get a chance to look at the source. Richard Koch, Black Snake, White Snake. Bahta Haggos and his revolt against Italian overrule in Eritrea. So look that up. Black Snake, White Snake. Bahta Haggos and his revolt against Italian overrule in Eritrea, 1894. And also in banditry, rebellion, and social protest. In banditry, rebellion, and social protest. Donald Crummy. Two sources. At that time, it makes sense to say that a person like Bahta Haggos would say that the Abyssinians are better than Italy. Why wouldn't he say that? Same religion, same language. Because at that time, Johannes was emperor. And Johannes was from Tigray, modern day Tigray. Another collaborator turned rebel. So another collaborator turned rebel. He was a collaborator, he became a rebel. Another collaborator turned rebel was Blata Gebre Egziabihir Gilai, or maybe Gilai or Gilai, I don't know how to pronounce the word, who used to repeatedly, bluntly, and harshly denigrate Menelik for selling half of Tigray to the Italians. Half of Tigray. This is the name. His name is, I'll give you the source. His name was Blata Gebra Egziabher Gilai. And he said that he used to repeatedly say, harshly denigrate Menelik for selling half of Tigray. So he considered that land, his land, which is Tigrinya land, to be Tigray. Let's see the source. The source is Irma Tadia, Ethiopian source material and colonial rule in the 19th century. The letter to Menelik, 1899, by Blata Gebra Egziabher, Journal of African History, 34, page 34. Cambridge, 1993, 493 to 516. 34 might be the number of the journal, I'm not sure, because it's mentioning page numbers 493 to 516. Maybe that includes the journal in that in those pages. In any case, let's go on, shall we? In 1937, two Eritreans, Abraha Deboch and Moges Asgadom, tried to kill Marshal Graziani, Mussolini's viceroy in Addis Ababa, the capital of Africa Orientale Italiana. That means, I believe, Italian East Africa. That's what they called it. Graziani retaliated by murdering 6,000 innocent natives, which was quite a fair score even by Hitler's standards. In 1938, Zar'ai Daras, just want to look at the source, by Hitler's standards. What talks about Hitler's standards is Ministry of War Transport, Noe Baker, to Richard Law, MP Foreign Office. Okay, so in 1938, Zar'ai, I think that's the name. Maybe it's Zara, or I think it's Zar'ai, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, forgive me. Daras, a young Eritrean who was in Rome, killed Italians during the erection of the looted statue of the Lion of Judah in Rome's Cinquecento Square. So this person, Zar'ai, forgive me, Tigrinya names, some of them I don't know, so forgive me. If you want to correct me, please do by writing it in Ge'ez, and let me learn something. So this person, in 1938, Zar'ai Daras, a young Eritrean who was in Rome, killed Italians during the erection of the looted statue of the Lion of Judah in Rome's capital, Cinquecento Square. We don't advocate nobody who is innocent, nobody who is from Tigray or Eritrea or advocates killing innocent civilians. But this is just how Dr. Alemseged is mentioning what happened, what the reaction was by the natives. So nobody thinks that, oh, look at these Eritreans, they're crazy. Look at these Tigrayans or Ethiopians, they have terrorism in their history. We don't condone this type of behavior. Someone reacted to something. This was the way he reacted. We don't advocate it. We did not tell him to do it. Our ancestors did not tell him to do it. This guy acted on his own. And even if he acted by someone telling him to do it, well, they still acted on their own. We don't advocate killing innocent people. Our dictators do, not us. Talk to them, not us. Don't talk to us about that. Eritreans saw him as their hero for manifesting Ethiopian patriotism. Waldeab Mariam interview, November 2nd, 1982. So this was by an interview with Waldeab Mariam. Walde Mariam, an interview in November 2nd, 1982. In parentheses, it says Rome, and then Rice in capital letters. I don't know what it stands for, but that's what is being said. The Lion of Judah in Rome's Cinquecento Square is Ras Mangesha. So that area, Ras Mangesha Siyum interview with SBS Radio in Amharic on April 11th, 2016. The square was named in memory of and tribute to the 500 Italian soldiers who were killed in 1887 at the Battle of Dogali by Ras Alula's army. Whilst Italy memorizes its victims by naming a square Cinquecento in Rome, the statue of Ras Alula that had been erected in Dogali, tribute to his heroic acts, was demolished by the EPLF in 1991. The EPLF demolished Ras Alula's statue. Forgetting the past, which evinced the umbilical links of the two sides of the Merab, was dialectically related to remembering the invented present in the process of constructing the Eritrean nation. So, I guess the view is that this was like cutting the connection with Tigray. About Ras Alula, so as a Blin, Ras Alula is known by the Blin, by my tribe, to have committed atrocities against the Blin, and also against the Kunama. He did these things. Look, Ras Alula was someone involved in politics. He was a government guy. A lot of government people, most of them, many of them, are not always good people. They will do bad things in order to make gains. This is how they function. It doesn't matter where they come from. If they come from Tigray, just because they come from Tigray doesn't make them heroes. And if you're a Tigrayan, doesn't mean they're your hero. Just because they come from, if they're Blin and they commit atrocities, doesn't mean that I'm going to give them credit. If they're Muslim and they commit atrocities, doesn't mean I'm going to give them credit. If another Muslim does that, that's him. You want to talk to me about a certain person who committed atrocities? I might have something different to say than that other Muslim who defends. For me, anyone who commits any kind of crime, any kind of murder, theft, usurpation, anything, that's evil. I don't give a damn what tribe he belongs to, what religion he belongs to. I don't care. He has nothing to do with me. I disown the person. I dissociate myself from him. We need to be clear on that. Sami has nothing to do with them. If you have a concern or comment, leave it in the comment box. We'll talk about it. Even as recently as the 1980s, Walde Ab Walde Mariam, the most celebrated Eritrean political activist of the 1940s, bitterly criticized Menelik and his envoy Ras Makonnen, his envoy Ras Makonnen, for selling Eritrea to the Italians for money and armaments. That was the interview with same interview, Walde Ab Walde Mariam interview with in Rome with Rice. That's what it's all in capital letters. It's an acronym. November, I believe it's an acronym. November 2nd, 1982. So he said they sold Italy for arms and money. Despite the wretched life of the natives, Italy boldly claimed that our Eritrean colony was the brightest and purest gem of European European colonialism. And traces of it remain in the social and moral of the Eritreans, and moral level of the Eritreans. This is what Italy boldly claimed. They boasted that our Eritrean colony was the brightest and purest gem of European colonialism. And then he says later the person says later in the in this talk or speech or interview, traces of it remain in the social and moral level of the Eritreans. In the social and moral level of Eritreans, traces of Italy remain. our Eritrean colony. And traces of this, of European colonialism remain there. What is the source? Count Sforza. So that was Count Sforza who said that. Count Sforza on Eritrea in the Italian Parliament on December 12th. From Rome to Foreign Office, telegram number 1560, December 15th, 1949. So 8 years after Italy was driven out. That was Count Sforza. May God curse Count Sforza. Okay. Eritrea was indeed. The brightest and purest gem of European colonialism, Eritrea was indeed. Few, if any, colonialists would invest so much in a colony whose payoff was nothing except as a source of labor and a gateway to Ethiopia. Indeed, manicured Asmara, with its magnificent Viale Mussolini, was a showpiece of Italian grandiosity and engineering at its best. But as an alien entity transplanted amongst them, the natives could not relate to it. They could not relate to Asmara. In the late 1940s, the Italian foreign minister, Count Sforza, must have had Piccolo Roma in mind when he tried to convince the USA, Britain, and France to intervene on Italy's behalf to stop the return of Eritrea to Ethiopia. The Italians didn't want Eritrea to be given to Ethiopia. This is something to think about, by the way. What was the Italian view of the revolution? How did the Italians view it? Yes, there was oppression being committed against the Eritreans. There's countless articles. Go to ehrea.org. I've mentioned it before. I don't have a problem repeating it a million times over. ehrea.org. Read about the history of Eritrea there. Anyway, this guy, Count Sforza, tried to convince the USA, Britain, and France to intervene on Italy's behalf to stop the return of Eritrea to Ethiopia. Don't give Eritrea. Somebody might say, including myself, that Eritrea never was a whole part of Ethiopia consistently. It was part of Eritrea and Ethiopia. It was part of Ethiopia under the kingdom of Aksum. That's correct. I'd rather have Aksum than have Isaias. I don't know what the people were going through back then, but I'd rather be under, I'd rather be under many things than be under this trash Isaias. By the way, when I said yesterday in my previous video how Eritrea is organic, how Ethiopia is organic versus Eritrea, Eritreans became like machines. They became like robots. They became artificial. Ethiopia maintained their lands, their tribal lands, their ethnic lands. So the Tigrayans, they still occupy their land. So if you're talking about Adwa, people from Adwa, there are people who might migrate from one place to another, but they still defend their land, where they come from in Tigray. Raya, Quorum, Raya, Quorum. I'm trying to think about like outside places, not the major. I know the major places, but Quorum, Raya. There are certain areas that are occupied by Tigrayans, but they represent that particular part of Tigray. They're not from like Aksum or from Adwa or from Maqalle. They're not from there, or if they're from there, they represent that area. Eritreans, maybe these days, I don't know, but I don't hear much about them talking about. They just say we're Eritrean. They don't really say. I haven't heard people say that. Oh, I have heard people say I'm from Karan, or I'm from Karan, or but I haven't heard people say that like, oh, I'm from Mendefera or Seraye right here, or defending Saganati or something like that. I don't usually see that. Maybe they do it. I don't know, but I haven't heard that. Maybe they're doing it these days. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I have seen it with Tigrayans. They're proud to be from from the areas of Tigray they're from. Similarly, other people will represent where they come from in Ethiopia. Eritrea became a machine, a kind of factory. That's what I meant by it's artificial, because I didn't clarify enough. Forgive me for that. He, Count Sforza, he claimed that the return of Europeanized Eritreans to pre-modern Ethiopia would be an affront to Western civilization. Same source, I believe it is. The same source as it was during his speech. Of course, his claim that traces of Western values remain in the social and moral level of the Eritreans was sheer exaggeration, because no Western moral level, for instance, would permit slavery in its legal system, as the Italians did. But Italy codified in Eritrea customary laws, which legislated slavery. Moreover, Eritreans were not given the opportunity to internalize Western social and moral values because Italy actively prevented them from having access to Western education. Sforza is he just doesn't want it to go back. He doesn't want to make his enemy, Ethiopia, powerful. We're not saying Ethiopia wasn't an enemy to us either, or even to its own people, to those who were already there. We're not saying they weren't enemies to them either. They were enemies to everyone in the land. By the way, I want to make it clear that Usman Saleh Sabbeh, he was one of the founders of the ELF, but he was also one of the founders of the EPLF, because he was one of the first, if not the first, to break away from the ELF and start the ELF PLF, Popular Liberation Forces. Usman Saleh Sabbeh, very intelligent man. May God bless him. Usman Sabbeh, he was Saho, by the way. He was Saho but Saho are related somehow to the Irob. I don't know the exact relationship, but Sabbeh, he wanted to start between the Muslims of Eritrea and Ethiopia what was known as Al-Urwatul Wuthqa. I believe it means like Al-Urwatul Wuthqa at the time escapes my I don't know what it means, but he wanted to start a kind of a group between Ethiopian Muslims and Eritrean Muslims, which he did actually, but it didn't continue, I guess, for whatever reason. I think Idris Muhammad Adam disagreed. His compatriot disagreed with that. He said that he didn't want to do that because he felt, I guess, the Ethiopians, they have their own issues and their own things going, and we have our different issues. But Sabbeh wanted to bring Ethiopian Muslims and Eritrean Muslims together, not against Christians, no, but just to bring them together under just one umbrella as Muslims, because the Ethiopian Muslims were going under the same or under their own hell and headache and hell under Haile Selassie, if I'm not mistaken. And he started that group, Al-Urwatul Wuthqa, which was based in I'll bring the translation next time, which was based in Masawa, in Batza'. Batza' means Masawa'. So let's finish the paragraph.